You ever feel like something's watching you but not from the shadows? Not from behind a tree or under a bed. I mean really watching, like it's inside you already. Flicking through your memories like a picture book. Waiting for the exact moment to step out and make itself known. That's what it felt like the night I got the call. But first, if you've got a strong heart and a curious mind, subscribe and drop a comment when your jaw hits the floor. Just don't do it too loud. It might hear you. Now, let me tell you a story that still has me sleeping with the lights on. It started on a Thursday. Rain slicked the streets of Portland like oil on glass, and I was halfway through a bottle of bourbon that had gone warm. I wasn't expecting work, hell. I wasn't expecting anything but silence. But then my burner phone rang. Blocked number, I answered with a grunt. The voice on the other end was female. Steady, too steady. The kind of voice that sounds rehearsed. Like they practiced it 100 times in the mirror before dialing. Is this Mr. Crow Depends who's asking? I need your help. It's about a missing child. I leaned back in my chair, every instinct in me tightening like piano wire. I'm not law enforcement. Not anymore. I don't do custody cases. If you've lost a kid, call the cops. They can't help, she said. She was taken. Taken by who? I don't know if it's a who. There was something in the pause that followed. Not fear, not desperation. Resignation. Like she'd already seen the worst and had accepted it. I scribbled the details down. A girl named Evelyn, 7 years old. Lived with her parents in a remote part of the northern Washington. Small cabin, no neighbors. And then she said the part that twisted my gut. Her parents are dead. Have been for 4 days. Evelyn disappeared yesterday. I didn't respond. My mouth had gone dry. That doesn't make sense, I said. I know. Who's reporting her missing then? The line was silent. Then I used to be her nanny. I still check in. I knew the family. They were different. I've heard that word used too many times in this line of work. It always ends in blood, candles, or an open gate to someplace dark. I'll need an address. I already booked you a room at the Oak Pines Motel, 30 miles out. Room 13. Keys will be waiting. The house is off Route 12-mile marker 189. GPS won't work. Of course it won't, I muttered. The line went dead before I could ask her name. The next morning, I was already rolling northbound. The clouds hung like bruises over the landscape. And the deeper I drove into the forest, the quieter it got. No birdsong, no cars, just my engine and the occasional rustle of wind through dying leaves. Oak Pines Motel was the kind of place you only see in nightmares and roadside crimes. I half expected chalk outlines on the parking lot. The guy at the counter didn't look up once, just handed me the key to room 13 and shuffled back to his chair behind the cracked plexiglass. Inside the room, it was colder than it should have been. Heater rattled like bones in a can. I didn't unpack, just sat down. Looked over the photos the nanny had emailed. Evelyn, brown curls, gap-toothed smile. In one picture, she held a ragged stuffed rabbit with mismatched eyes. I stared too long at that rabbit. Something about it. The way one eye looked almost angry. The parents looked normal enough. Too normal. Stiff smiles. Every picture felt posed. Not like moments of joy, but like records. Like they wanted proof that they were just like everyone else. People who take pictures to convince themselves of happiness. I left for the house by noon. The road disappeared after mile marker 189. I followed a dirt path covered in leaves and rot. Limbs of trees arching overhead like a throat swallowing me whole. It was a long drive for a dead end, and then I saw it. A cabin that looked like it had been stapled into the earth wrong angles. Windows too small, door too tall, blackened wood, moss climbing its sides like mold. No signs of life, not even insects. I parked, stepped out, and immediately felt the pressure, like the air itself was thicker here. My boots crunched on gravel as I approached the front door. It wasn't locked. Inside, cold. Not the kind of cold that bites, the kind that lingers. That sinks into your clothes, your bones, your lungs. Every room was tidy, dustless, too clean. The living room held framed drawings, crayon scribbles. Some looked like stick figures, others less so. One was all red. Just red lines over red lines over red lines until the paper tore at the center. The kitchen still had plates set. Breakfast, toast, eggs, orange juice, mold growing on all of it, but in perfect arrangement. Untouched, not a crumb out of place. Then I found the hallway. 3 doors, one slightly ajar. A child's room. The moment I stepped in, I heard it a faint creaking, like someone shifting their weight on an old mattress. But the bed was empty. The room was neat, except for the smell. Not rot, not damp, something sweet. Artificial, like cotton candy left in the sun too long. And sitting at the center of the bed, the rabbit, the same one from the photo. Staring at me with that same angry eye, that's when I heard it. A knock. Not from the front door. From the wall, 3 short knocks. From inside, I turned slowly, eyes scanning the corners of the room. There was nothing, no closets, no hidden doors, just wall, but the knocking came again. 3 knocks, short, deliberate. That's when I knew. Whatever I had stepped into, it wasn't just a missing person case. It was something that had waited, and now it knew my name. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I left the cabin, locked the front door behind me, got in my car, and drove back to the Oak Pines Motel. I couldn't shake the sound of those 3 knocks. They weren't loud, weren't frantic, just confident. Like someone who already knew you'd come back. Back in room 13, the air smelled faintly of iron. I checked the windows, the vents. Nothing out of place. Still, I set a chair under the doorknob and slept with the lamp on, or tried to, sometime past 3 a.m. The lights flickered. Then the bulb popped, pitch black. The heater let out a hiss, then fell silent. I was left in a motel room, colder than a corpse, staring into the dark, heart hammering as if it knew something I didn't. Then I heard a thump above me. There wasn't a second floor. I got dressed before the sun came up. By 7, I was outside the local sheriff's office, brick building. 1 floor, flypaper on the windows, and a smell of stale coffee hit me as I walked in. Sheriff Dawson looked like he'd been carved from beef jerky sinewy, leathery, tired. He barely glanced at my ID. "You're here about the McCarthys," he said. "You already know they're dead." "Yeah. One of our guys found the place last week. Quiet call, we didn't put it on the wire." Why, he sighed. "Because that family was weird. Whole damn town knows it." I pulled out the photo of Evelyn. "Then you know the girl's missing." His eyes dropped to the image. Something behind them shifted. Something tight and buried. "She's dead. You've seen a body." "No, then she's not dead." Dawson didn't say anything, just stared at the photo a second longer, then nodded toward the back. "We got a guy you should talk to. Name's Nolan, volunteer EMT, found the bodies. Haven't seen him since. Quit the next day." Nolan lived in a trailer on the edge of a clearing, surrounded by rusted cars and plastic flamingos that had seen better decades. He didn't open the door at first, just shouted through it, "Don't want to talk." I already told the cops. "I'm not a cop," I said. "Then you're worse," but the door creaked open anyway. Nolan looked about 40 but moved like he was 70. Eyes bloodshot, fingers shaking even before the coffee hit his lips. I sat across from him at the tiny table. No pictures on the walls. No sound in the room but the ticking of a crooked clock. "You saw them?" I asked. "Yeah, I saw them." "What did the scene look like?" "Like a family dinner gone sideways. Mr. McCarthy had his throat slit. Wife was at the kitchen table, eyes gone, just gone, like something scooped him clean out. And her hands. He took a breath. Her hands were inside the oven, like she was offering them to something. My stomach turned. And the girl wasn't there, but there was something else. Something I haven't told anyone. He leaned in, the smell of fear on his breath. There were footprints, small, like a child's, in the blood, but they weren't running. They were dancing, back at the cabin. I returned to the child's room. The stuffed rabbit was gone. I hadn't touched it. I was sure of that. I checked the entire house again this time more methodically. Tapped every wall, measured corners, took photos. The floorboards creaked differently in the hallway, one in particular slightly raised. I pried it up. Underneath a crawl space, the smell hit me first. Sweet, foul, like spoiled candy. I dropped down into the hole, flashlight in hand. It was narrow, claustrophobic, and then I saw the drawings, hundreds of them. Paper pinned to the beams, to the dirt walls, to the underside of the floorboards, all done in crayon, some stick figures, some that looked like spirals, others were jagged, wild scratches, but the ones that stopped me were the ones with writing, over and over again. He talks to me. He promised me a new family. I won't be alone if I say yes. And in the corner, smaller, don't trust the bunny. That's when I heard it. The soft scratch of claws on wood. I turned, nothing. But the rabbit, it was back, sitting on the edge of the crawl space, facing me, its head tilted just slightly to the side. I hauled myself out fast, heart thudding, grabbed the rabbit and threw it in the back seat of my car, wrapped in a plastic bag. I wasn't sure what the hell was going on, but I was starting to understand one thing. Evelyn might have vanished, but she hadn't gone far. She might even be watching. Back at the motel, I started reviewing the files again, looking for something I missed. That's when I noticed the birth certificate. Evelyn's middle name, Anya. Something tugged at the back of my mind. I opened the public records database and ran a background search. The McCarthys had adopted her. Nothing unusual until I found the original adoption file. The child had come from a closed-case orphanage in Idaho, shut down in 2017 after a series of unexplainable incidents. Staff going missing, children waking up with bleeding eyes. One even spoke in a language no one could identify. The orphanage name, Anya's House. And here's the kicker, Evelyn wasn't her first name. It was a name given after adoption. Her original name was Anya, the rabbit. It was listed in the possessions transferred with her. Not a toy, a behavioral focal object used to calm her night terrors. Only problem, that rabbit had been destroyed in a fire at the orphanage. So, how the hell was it sitting in the back of my car? I didn't take the rabbit back inside. I left it in the trunk, locked it in, then taped the seams shut like it could still breathe through them. I'd seen enough things in my life to know when something was watching me and that rabbit. It watched, not with eyes, with memory, with weight. The motel shower didn't run hot, just a lukewarm trickle, but I stood under it anyway, trying to peel the feeling off me like skin, no matter how long I stood there, though. I couldn't forget the way the crawlspace air had smelled, or the way those words had looked like they were written by a hand that wasn't sure it belonged to a child anymore. When I finally stepped out, my phone was vibrating on the counter. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. At first, I thought no one was there, just static. Then a voice small, thin, like wind through broken glass, whispered, "You brought him back." Then the line went dead by the time I reached the sheriff's office again. The sky was boiling over with storm clouds. Sheriff Dawson wasn't at his desk. A young deputy name tag said Miller looked up as I walked in. "You, Ethan Crow, depends. The sheriff left this for you." He handed me a folder. I opened it slowly. Inside photos. Crime scene ones, taken from the McCarthy cabin. I'd seen some already, but these were different angles. Different times. Then, near the bottom, a fresh one. My rental car, parked in front of the cabin. Taken that morning, no one should have known I'd gone back. I stared at Miller. When were these taken? Sheriff didn't say. Just told me to make sure you got him. Where is he now? Miller hesitated. Said he had to check something at the old quarry. The quarry was miles out of town. Abandoned. Fenced off after 3 kids fell into it back in the 90s. Only one came out, never spoke again. I grabbed my coat. The road to the quarry was half gravel, half regret. The trees leaned in like they wanted to whisper warnings. My GPS lost signal 10 minutes in, but I didn't need it, just followed the weight in my gut. But the fence was still there. Barely, rusted, sagging. Someone had cut a hole in it. Recent. I stepped through. The quarry stretched out like a scar, deep. Dark. Silent. Wind whipped through it. But the trees didn't move. The air was wrong. Still. I found Dawson's cruiser parked near the edge. Empty, no sign of him. Then I heard it. A humming. Childlike. Soft. I followed it around a bend in the path. There, just beyond the rocks, a small figure stood at the edge of the quarry. A little girl, pale blue dress, blonde hair, barefoot. She turned slowly. It was Evelyn. But her eyes, they weren't right. Too wide, too black. Evelyn, I called out. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, closer to the edge, and smiled. Don't, I said. It's not safe. She turned her head in that slow, deliberate way children do when they're playing. Pretend. Only this wasn't pretend. There's more room down there, she said, for all of us. Then she stepped off the edge. I ran, fast as I could, slid down the gravel. My hands tore open on the rock. But I didn't care. I reached the ledge where she'd fallen. Looked over, nothing. Just black water, 30 feet below. Not a ripple, no body, no splash, just the echo of a girl's giggle, reverberating off the stone. I sat in my car for nearly an hour afterward. Didn't move. Just listened to the rain start to fall and wondered if I was chasing a ghost or being chased by one. Then I remembered the rabbit. I popped the trunk. The plastic bag was shredded. The rabbit was gone. But in its place, sitting neatly on the lining, was a page, crayon, child's handwriting. You saw her, you found me. Now you'll listen too. Back at the motel, I didn't bother sleeping. Instead, I scoured every inch of the Evelyn McCarthy file again. Buried in the adoption notes was a line I'd missed. Subject exhibits dissociative episodes. Claims to talk to father below when left alone at night. There was a contact number. A Dr. Leland Ashcroft clinical psychologist who'd evaluated her twice during her time at Anya's house. I called the number. Didn't expect it to work. It rang and rang, then clicked. A tired, raspy voice answered. Dr. Ashcroft, Ethan Crow. I'm looking into one of your former patients, Evelyn McCarthy. Adopted from Anya's house. Silence. Then I should have burned those records. Then help me understand. You can't, no one can. She wasn't human, not entirely. She was a vessel. For what? He hesitated. For him. The one they drew in crayon. The one she said lived under her bed. You think she was possessed. I think she invited it. That's worse, much worse. I looked at the page in my lap. The drawing Evelyn had left in my trunk. It wasn't just scribbles. It was a sigil, and I'd seen it before, etched into the oven at the McCarthy cabin, painted in blood on the orphanage walls and photos archived online, scratched faintly into the motel room mirror when I turned around. I wasn't hunting a child anymore. I was being invited, drawn, into something I didn't yet understand, but that understood me, deeply. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels like something is holding its breath. That's what the motel room became. Not quiet, expectant, like the room knew something I didn't, and it was just waiting for me to catch up. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I kept staring at the sigil Evelyn had left the one in crayon. The one I'd now seen burned, scratched, or painted in more than one location. I traced its shape over and over again in the air, my mind trying to decode its geometry like it was a map, a key, and maybe it was, when morning finally came. I drove straight to Anya's house. It was a red brick colonial out on the edge of Millersfield, tucked between an abandoned church and a stretch of wood so dense the sunlight got filtered down to a kind of eternal dusk. The kind of place that had a history whether it wanted one or not. I pulled into the gravel lot and killed the engine. No other cars, no sign of life. The gate was open, the door too. Inside, everything was preserved, like someone left in a hurry but still expected to come back. Children's paintings still clung to the corkboards, shoes still in cubbies, toys still laid out on the carpet like their owners had just stepped away. And then I heard it, a faint lullaby, humming. From upstairs, I followed the sound slowly, hand on the grip of the small revolver I kept beneath my coat. Every floorboard groaned under me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was walking right behind me. Always one step behind, never seen, only sensed. The sound led me to a nursery room, faded pastel walls, animal decals peeling, a row of cribs. In the far crib, a music box turned slowly, but it wasn't touching anything. It wasn't wound, it just turned. Tick, tick, tick. Then the melody stopped, just like that, and the crib across from it creaked. There was nothing in it, but the blankets had just settled. I stepped back, turned, and saw her, a woman, late 50s, stringy gray hair, pale, sharp face, standing in the doorway behind me. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "You're the caretaker." I was, she whispered. I stayed longer than I should have. But Evelyn, she never really left. What happened to her? She was taken, Mr. Crow, but she let it take her. She gave herself. It's what it wanted. A child, not innocent, but small enough to fit what she didn't answer at first. Just moved past me and picked up the music box, cradled it like a child. She was drawing them for weeks before it happened. The same figure, black limbs, no face, long fingers, standing under her bed, always under her bed. She looked at me. "Do you know what a threshold is?" "Sure, it's a liminal space, a place between places. Doorways, mirrors, cribs, under beds. Children know them instinctively. It's where things wait." I felt my stomach twist. What happened the night she disappeared? She closed her eyes. She was humming, like always. I went to check on her, and she was just gone. No broken window, no open door, just a trail of wet footprints leading from the bed. Across the ceiling, I left Anya's house with more questions than I came with, but something she said stuck in my mind. Thresholds, liminal spaces, doorways, places where one thing becomes another. That's where he existed. And Evelyn, she was always near those places. Back at the motel, I started combing through the old photos again. Crime scene shots, nursery photos, hand-drawn pictures from Evelyn's file, and I found it. In almost every photo reflected in a window, or sitting on the edge of a frame, was that rabbit. That damned rabbit, always in the background. Always watching, but in one photo, something else. Barely visible in the mirror behind Evelyn, a tall, black shape, no face, bent, like its neck couldn't hold the weight of its own head. I ran it through every kind of image enhancement tool I had, and when I sharpened it, one detail became clear. It had no reflection, just a shadow standing where a child should have been. That night, I got another call. Blocked number, I answered without a word. A child's voice, whispering, "Father below knows your name now." Then a click. I checked my motel door. Locked, windows slightly ajar, and on the mirror, written in something red, "Welcome to the threshold." I didn't leave, not yet. Something told me I was too deep now. Like walking into fog and turning back would only get you more lost. I sat at the desk, opened my laptop, Started researching a name I'd seen in the original adoption documents but hadn't paid much attention to. Joseph Thorne, private donor, big contributor to Anya's house. I dug deeper. Turns out Thorne wasn't just a donor. He was the one who founded it in 1973, but he vanished in 1984. His last known location, an old house on the outskirts of Millersfield. The same house the McCarthys later bought. I looked back at Evelyn's crayon drawings. The rabbit, the figure, the cabin, all of it was there. She'd drawn the house over and over, and beneath it, always the same words. He waits below. I knew where I had to go next. Back to the house. Back to where Evelyn was taken. Only this time, I wasn't going in to search. I was going in to listen. The house looked different this time. Not in any physical sense, it still stood, gray and sagging, like it was caving in under the weight of its own secrets, but the air was heavier, more expectant, like something knew I was coming back. And it had been preparing for me. I parked a block away and walked in through the woods to avoid drawing attention. As I stepped closer, the cicadas fell silent. No wind, no animals, just the crunch of my boots on dead leaves. I brought supplies this time. Flashlight, chalk, salt, a small tin pendant I'd picked up from a Navajo friend years ago, etched with protection sigils he swore by. I didn't believe in that stuff back then. I believe in it now, inside. The temperature dropped fast. My breath fogged, wood groaned, not from weight or wind, but like it was reacting to my presence, announcing it, warning something. I moved room by room, tracing the chalk in small protective circles, repeating a phrase I'd memorized from a banishment rite I found in Evelyn's file. It wasn't traditional Latin, more like phonetic syllables meant to mimic something older, deeper, maybe even older than language itself. Every time I passed a mirror, I covered it. Every time I crossed a doorway, I salted it. I wasn't here to search anymore. I was here to let it find me. And it did. The first sign was the laughter. Faint, childlike, but broken, like it had been practiced. Then came the knocks, rhythmic, first from the kitchen, then upstairs, then the basement, always 3 knocks, then silence, then breath, then a scratching sound, like nails on wood. I followed the noise to the living room and found the old floorboards warped in a perfect circle. In the center, barely visible, was the crayon sigil again, but this time it was carved in, deep. I got on my knees, traced the edge of the marking, and then the floor gave. It didn't crack or break. It opened. I landed hard, flashlight skittering across dirt. I was in a crawl space or maybe a hidden basement. No lights, just earth walls and the stench of mildew and rot. I retrieved the flashlight and swept the beam across the room. That's when I saw the altar. It was crude, stones, animal bones, and dolls. Small ones, each missing their eyes, stitched shut with red thread around the altar. Names were carved into the walls. Some I recognized missing children cases I'd read in old newspapers. And then Evelyn, scrawled in a child's handwriting. Above her name was a symbol I hadn't seen before, an upside-down triangle within a circle. 3 dots at each corner. It pulsed in the light like it didn't want to be seen. Then I heard it, a low breath. Behind me, I turned fast. Nothing, but the ground was damp, and in the dirt, a trail of small footprints leading into the wall. I approached cautiously, hand outstretched. Touched the dirt, and my hand went through it. Like water, without thinking, I followed. I can't describe the space I entered next in ways that make sense. The geometry was wrong. The walls breathed. Light had no source. I felt like I was moving, but my feet weren't touching anything. I was no longer in the house. I was between the threshold. And in that place I saw her, Evelyn, or what was left of her. She stood at the edge of a hallway that stretched infinitely in both directions. Her eyes were gone, just hollow sockets filled with static. Her hands trembled as she reached toward me. "Mr. Crow." Her voice was layered, as if something else was speaking through her. "He waits below. You brought him closer." I tried to step forward, but the space resisted. It pushed back. Evelyn's form flickered like an old VHS tape, glitching in and out of reality. "You can't take me back," she whispered. "Why? Because I'm not the only one here." She screamed suddenly, a high, piercing sound that shook the hallway. The walls cracked open like splitting skin, and from the gaps spilled hands, hundreds of them reaching, grasping, pulling. Something moved in the dark behind her, tall, thin. Its head bent sideways to fit through the corridor, eyes like holes that pulled light in. I turned and ran. When I emerged from the crawlspace, I was gasping, bleeding, trembling. I slammed the floorboards shut and poured salt in a thick line across the seam. I traced the protection sigil in ash across it and whispered the rite again. Voice hoarse. I don't remember getting back to the motel. I only remember the door slamming behind me, and realizing the pendant was gone, I sat in the dark, processing what I'd seen, what Evelyn had become. The threshold wasn't a place. It was a bridge, and she had become it. A vessel. Something had been using her. Not just to cross over, but to open the way. And it wasn't finished. The phone rang. No ID. I answered, a man's voice this time. Calm. Measured. "You made it back." "Good. Not many do. Who is this?" "You know me. You've seen my work." Thorn's silence. Then, "It's not about saving her anymore, Mr. Crow. It's about stopping what comes next." Then the click. Outside my window, I saw it again. The rabbit mask, motionless, staring up, and next to it, a second figure, smaller, Evelyn. But her head jerked unnaturally, like something inside her didn't quite understand how to be human anymore. Then they vanished. I didn't sleep that night either. There was no point. Sleep wouldn't bring rest, only invitations. I stayed awake through the morning, eyes fixed on the motel door like it might breathe. My mind kept replaying Evelyn's voice. Warped with that unnatural echo, "I'm not the only one here." Those words didn't feel metaphorical. They felt like coordinates, a warning or maybe an invitation. I needed more information, and I knew exactly where to get it. By noon, I was back in the town library, a cold coffee in one hand, Thorn's original file in the other. I wasn't looking at the pictures this time. I was hunting for the things that didn't belong, the gaps, the oddities, the pieces that didn't make sense the first time around. That's when I saw it. A single photograph, buried in the corner of the report, black and white, poor quality. A shot of the house's basement before it was boarded up. In the corner of the image was a figure, not Evelyn, a man in a long coat, standing half in shadow, face obscured, but unmistakable once you've seen it, the same rabbit mask. The date stamp on the photo 2 years before Evelyn was born. I dug deeper. Police logs, death records, anything that would explain what was going on inside that house before the family even moved in. And that's when the story took a turn. There had been another child taken, 40 years ago. Same neighborhood, same address, same outcome, vanished without a trace. Only difference. No one ever looked for that boy. His parents were found days later, both dead in bed, eyes missing, mouths stuffed with dirt. His name, Gideon Ray. Back at the motel, I spread every piece of paper across the bed. Evelyn's disappearance, the odd rituals, the carved sigils, the recurring rabbit mask, and now Gideon. A pattern began to form, like someone or something had been repeating a cycle every few decades, drawing in children, baiting specific types of people to investigate. The house wasn't haunted, it was feeding, and we kept walking right into its mouth. That night, I didn't bother locking the door. Whatever was coming wasn't going to be stopped by deadbolts. I laid out the pendant, some of the ash from the house, and a matchbook I'd found near the crawlspace entrance. It had a logo I hadn't seen before, a small theater symbol with one mask smiling, one frowning. Underneath, the hollow stage. Curious, I called around. No one had ever heard of it. But I did find something else. Old blog posts, urban legends, all tied to a traveling show that used to set up on the outskirts of small towns across the Midwest. No records, no taxes, no permits. Just a stage that would appear one night, vanish the next. And always a child would go missing the week after. I drove out toward the outskirts of town, following some old directions I'd found in an archived forum thread from 2004. You'll know it when you see it. The poster wrote, "Because it feels wrong," like the space bends around it. I laughed when I read it. I wasn't laughing anymore. 10 miles out of town, past a field choked with the dry grass, I found it. The theater. It looked like it had been dropped out of time. Wooden frame, torn red curtains fluttering even though there was no wind. Rows of rotting benches stretched out before it like teeth in an open jaw. But what truly hit me, what made my knees lock up, was the sound. Children, laughing, playing, singing. But there were no children. Just the voice of a memory stuck on repeat. And above the stage, painted in faded letters, "The hollow stage proudly presents Gideon's return." I stepped closer, the ground crunching under my boots. A whispering began to build in the air, not from around me, but inside me. Like someone was unspooling my thoughts, examining them, judging them. A figure stepped onto the stage, the man with the rabbit mask. He didn't speak, just tilted his head, slowly, as if studying me. Then he raised one hand, snapped his fingers, and the world fell silent. No wind, no breath, no heartbeat. Then, from beneath the stage, came the children. They crawled out slowly, dirty, eyeless, expressionless, like puppets searching for their strings. At their center was Evelyn. But now, she was different, no longer flickering between worlds. Now she was the stage. Her mouth opened, and a voice spoke through her. "Do you see now, Mr. Crow? This isn't a rescue. This is a replacement." I staggered backward, the truth setting in like a blade under my ribs. Every cycle wasn't just a feeding. It was a trade, one child taken, one returned, but not as they were, as something else, as the next gatekeeper. And now that I knew the ritual, now that I'd stepped through the threshold, I was part of the show, whether I wanted to be or not. Back at the motel, I found something waiting inside, a single item placed on the pillow, a new rabbit mask, sized for a child. Inside it a note, "She chose you. I didn't sleep that night." I sat in the corner of the room with every light on, rabbit mask on the nightstand, staring at it like it might twitch or speak. She chose you. What the hell did that mean? Was Evelyn still in there? Somewhere beneath the layered horror of whatever had taken her body? Or was that thing just toying with me, wearing her face, using her voice to draw me deeper into its design? I replayed everything. The timelines, the names, the disappearances. Every cycle tied back to the hollow stage and a child named Gideon. What if this wasn't about a single demon or haunting? What if it was a system, and I'd just volunteered as its next cog? At sunrise, I drove back to the house, not for answers, not even out of duty. I was looking for closure. The front door was already ajar when I arrived. Not friggin'. Just waiting. The inside of the home looked the same, but it felt different. Quieter. Somehow. Hollow. Like the walls had given up, pretending to be real. In the hallway, the wallpaper peeled itself back in strips. A single phrase had been scratched into the drywall underneath. "Let her go." I found myself in the basement before I realized I was even walking. The pendant Evelyn had worn was now pinned to the dirt wall with a single rusty nail. Her voice echoed from the far corner soft, afraid, like a recording of her final moments. I didn't mean to stay. I only wanted to see where the voices came from. Another voice layered over hers, deeper, mocking. She asked for the story. We showed her the stage. I began digging. Not because I expected to find her, but because something told me the truth wasn't buried in records or ghost stories. It was in the dirt, in the rot. 3 feet down, my shovel hit wood. A box, old handmade, nailed shut. Inside were dozens of old photographs, each black and white, each showing a different child, all standing in the same field, all with the same rabbit mask, all dated exactly 10 years apart. I checked the earliest photo. The child had a name scrawled on the back in faded ink. Gideon, age 7. I checked the next, then the next, and that's when I saw it. The most recent photo. The child wore the same mask, same field, same pose, but the figure standing behind her, the one holding her shoulders, was me. I dropped the photo and stumbled back, the room spinning, bile rising in my throat. What the hell is this? I wasn't there. I had never been in that field before a few days ago, but the photograph was old, weathered, yellowed at the edges. It wasn't doctored, it was real. The implications hit like a freight train. Time wasn't working the way I thought. The ritual didn't just take children. It looped us through something bigger, something ritualistic, recursive, a story retelling itself, using new names, new faces, but the same roles. And I had stepped directly into the script. I left the house and drove without thinking, past the motel, past the town, until I reached a place that didn't feel real anymore. The road disappeared beneath my tires, and I was coasting across a dusty field that hadn't seen rain in decades. The hollow stage was there again, only now it looked brand new. Fresh paint, curtains clean, and behind it, a crowd of empty chairs facing the platform. As I stepped onto the stage, I felt something click into place inside me like a puzzle piece sliding home. A spotlight flicked on. A child's voice called from the shadows. "Mr. Crow, is it story time?" I turned slowly. Evelyn was standing in the wings. She didn't look possessed anymore. She didn't look frightened or twisted or broken. She looked serene, like someone who had finally accepted something inevitable. I stepped forward, reaching for her. "We can leave right now. I know what this place is, and we can beat it." She smiled softly. "You still think this is about winning?" Then she handed me a script. My name was on the cover. The investigator. A bell chimed. The curtain rose. The chairs were no longer empty. Now they were filled. Faces I recognized. All the children from the photographs. All wearing rabbit masks. All watching silently. Evelyn turned to them, arms raised. "He is ready." A voice behind me spoke deep, ancient, and close to my ear. "Tell the story, Ethan." I turned and saw myself, older, eyes missing, a rabbit mask hanging around my neck. I stumbled back in horror as I stepped forward and took center stage and began to speak, word for word. The exact story I'd been telling since this started. From the motel to the house to the digging and the photo box, I was watching my own future unravel. I woke up in my car, parked in front of the house, no sign of the stage. No Evelyn, no box of photos, just me. And the rabbit mask, still resting on the passenger seat. I picked it up, and this time, I didn't put it down. I spent the next week trying to piece myself back together. But how do you recover from realizing you've been living inside someone else's story, that everything you are, your choices, your pain, your past is just part of a script designed to repeat? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those rabbit masks, heard the applause that came too late. I tasted the dirt on my tongue, and always, Evelyn's voice whispering, "He is ready." Ready for what? To take my place, or to be used again. I did what any sane man wouldn't. I went looking for Gideon. There were no official records, nothing on paper, no birth certificates, no school files. But people in town remembered him. They whispered his name like a curse. He wasn't right. One old man told me at the diner, eyes too sharp. Always knew what you were thinking. Like he was already 10 steps ahead. Disappeared one Halloween, said the waitress, lowering her voice. Went into that field after dark. His mama heard music, and he never came back. But that wasn't true, because he had come back, over and over again, in every photograph, in every child's vanishing. He was part of it now, maybe the start of it. I followed the few leads I had, dead ends. Silence. Until someone slipped me an envelope in the motel mailbox. No return address, just one photo. Black and white, a child standing in the field, a rabbit mask in one hand. In the other, a knife on the back. In looping cursive. This is how the story ends. Unless you change it. I went back to the field. Not to stop anything. Not anymore. I went to end it one way or another. The hollow stage wasn't there this time. Just a ring of stones and a hole in the earth. Half covered in dead grass. I stared into the dark pit, breathing shallow, heart hammering. Then I stepped in. The drop wasn't far, but when I landed, the world twisted. The air went still. My flashlight flickered once, and then the light stopped bouncing off the walls, because there were no walls, just void, empty black stretching in all directions. And in the center a figure, a child, sitting cross-legged, humming a melody so old it bypassed my ears and went straight into my bones. He looked up. The mask hung from his neck. His eyes weren't human. "Ethan," he said, "you took too long." "Gideon," I asked. He smiled. "That name doesn't mean anything here, but it's the one you need, so sure." "What is this place backstage?" he said simply. "Where the story is written, and rewritten, and looped." I stepped closer. "Why me?" He tilted his head. "Because you're the one who didn't look away. Most do. You see the blood, the rot, the wrongness, and you keep going." He stood, brushing dust off his jeans. "You thought you were hunting a demon." He continued. "But really, we were hunting you." My mouth went dry. "What do you want?" To hand over the pen, he said, "You keep acting like you're trapped in a nightmare, but you've missed the real horror." He leaned in. "You're the author now." With that, the blackness split open around me. 1,000 stages, 1,000 spotlights, each one containing a different version of me. One screaming, one holding Evelyn's hand, one laughing with blood on his shirt, one digging his own grave. They were all real, all happening, all at once. I turned to Gideon, if that was even his name. "I don't want this. Doesn't matter," he whispered. "It's yours. You wrote the ending long before you knew you were in the story." The void shattered, and I was alone. Back in my motel room, lights flickering. Rabbit mask staring at me from the dresser, but something had changed. I remembered all the lives now, all the versions. I wasn't Ethan anymore. I was the storyteller, and somewhere, Evelyn was waiting for me to tell the story right, to finish it, or begin again. I left the motel before sunrise. No destination, just the road, the mask, and a head full of noise. But even with the windows down, wind whipping my face, I couldn't outrun it. The weight of it all, Gideon, Evelyn. The looping stories had pressed down like an invisible hand around my throat. I knew now what I had become. Not just the investigator, not just the survivor, but the author of something far more dangerous. And I couldn't trust myself to tell it right. I kept thinking about the kids, not just Jacob, all of them. Faces in newspaper clippings. Names etched on crosses at the edge of forgotten towns. Had they ever really lived? Or were they just characters like me, scripted, repeated, sacrificed? Somewhere along the Oregon border, I stopped the car, got out, climbed a ridge and just stood there, listening. No wind, no birds, just the eerie hum of power lines stretching toward nowhere. Then I heard her, Evelyn, we can't rest until the final story is told. I turned, but she wasn't there, just the mask on my dashboard, glowing faintly in the twilight. And for the first time, I understood. I had to write it, all of it, not just to end the loop, but to trap it, to seal whatever force was puppeteering these horrors into words a prison made of ink and memory. So I began. It took months. I holed up in a cabin somewhere deep in the Cascades. No phone, no internet, just old notebooks, tape recorders, and nightmares to guide me. I wrote about the hollow stage, about the children with missing eyes, about the way Evelyn's breath fogged glass even when she wasn't there. I wrote until my hands bled, and when the pages began writing back, I didn't stop, because I had one goal: bind the evil inside a single version, a story so complete, so vivid, that it couldn't escape. Twist after twist, memory after memory. Everything that haunted me, everything that chased me, I caged it in that final chapter. And then I buried it, 10 feet down, inside a rusted lockbox, beneath the floorboards of a forgotten church. I salted the earth, burned sage, marked the walls with sigils I didn't fully understand, drawn from scraps of folklore and half-whispered prayers. And still, as I walked away, I felt it breathing behind me, watching, waiting, not defeated, just quieter. Weeks passed. I tried to go back to a life, grocery stores, coffee shops, talking to people without watching their shadows for signs of distortion, but it never felt real again. Every mirror felt like a window, every whisper like a line from the script I hadn't written. I started getting letters. No return address, each with a different child's name, each sealed with wax marked by a tiny rabbit. Somewhere, somehow, the story still wanted to be told. And maybe that's why I'm recording this now. Not to scare you, not even to warn you, but to remember in case I forget, because the scariest part isn't the monsters or the masks. It's knowing that even now, you're part of the story too, just by listening, by wondering, by believing. So, if you're feeling cold tonight, if something knocks once, twice, then 3 times just past midnight, if your reflection smiles when you don't look away, because looking away is how it finds a way in. And hey, if you're still breathing, maybe tap that subscribe button before your screen flickers. Yeah, leave a comment, tell me your version of the story. And if you hear a voice whisper your name when you're alone tonight, don't answer, because it already knows you, and it's just waiting for its cue. See you in the next Twisted Mystery.